I'm Alan Davis. I'm here with Mark Redden, and we're going to be chatting about his art. I'm the intern in IT Carlow. One of Mark's paintings is hanging in the Dargan Centre on the ground floor, and you can see it from the corridor into the office. And it's an absolutely amazing painting. It's called The Cabin of Narcissus. And it was created by Mark, who's with me at the moment. And Mark, can you tell us a little bit about the painting and the inspiration behind the work?
Hi, Alan. I will indeed. Thanks very much for having me and your interest.
No problem at all.
I'm talking to you from the studio in Barcelona, and I was reminiscing on that painting, and I think I painted it in 2008, and I'd moved to Barcelona, and I'd been here about a year and working in a studio. And I had been taking trips around Catalonia and going into the mountains and the Pyrenees. And at the time, I also had a fascination with wooden-built submarines. And there was a man called Narcís Monturiol, and he was one of the pioneering submarine inventors. And I had been living in Roscommon for a long time before moving to Barcelona, and another submarine inventor, funnily enough, came from very close to where I was living in Roscommon, in a small little village called Mantua, and his name was John Holland, and he built submarines with the intention of attacking the British Empire at the time. Narcís Monturiol was building submarines to help out the coral fishermen that worked off the coast of Barcelona, because it was such a dangerous occupation that there were many drownings, and he was trying to figure out a way that he could maybe harvest coral in a safe way using an underwater vehicle. So I suppose I was thinking, and I became very good friends with a Catalan guy called Narcís as well. So it's all got a lot of combined stories in it. And I think I was thinking about a place where someone might sit and ponder problems and come up with inventions and solutions. And I suppose it's also some kind, like a map of my journeys in and around Catalonia, and a kind of a thought map as well of the ideas that I was sort of exposed to at the time.
Can a contrast between your paintings and you're mentioning there even submarines, and you're into boat building? I've seen videos of you on YouTube, and you're in a curragh in Barcelona. And it strikes me, considering your work, that there's a symmetry between boat building. It's not really present in your images that I've seen, your paintings. So the whole of a boat is quite symmetrical, but your paintings are quite more, they bring the eye on a journey, and there's probably more a chaotic element to it. Would your intent then be to create perhaps a nautical journey, or is there something else there at play?
I really like that observation, Alan. Yeah, I've been boat building was a way to support my kind of artistic career since I was around 20. So I went to work for a boat builder out in the west of Ireland, and that all happened just by chance, and it was something I enjoyed working with my hands, and I enjoyed the work, and it kept me going. And later on, I got into curragh building in Cork, in a place called Metalmara. I went back to college at the Crawford College of Art and Design, and I had some work in a boat building centre very close to the college, Metalmara. So I began making curraghs, and I suppose what interested me most about that work, working with Metalmara, it's a community-based centre, so we'd be working with people from all over the community, and I'm working with lots of children as well. So I really started enjoying being a sort of an educator and passing on the skills that I had learned through boat building, and then working with people to create a vehicle, you know, to create a boat. It's quite magical. It's quite a magical experience, and to eventually be able to float and navigate is it's just a wonderful process. And I think there's something in that's very hard to find in painting, bringing that kind of community together. So it kind of became like a social part of my art making, making the boats and making sort of functional sculptures in a way.
An element in my own work has been functional sculpture. I've built kites and stuff like that in the past. So I find this really intriguing what you're saying at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice to have those well, it's symmetries, yeah, and bringing in other people into a project from all walks of life, and I think it's something that people are drawn to, you know, things that function and that help us in our
yeah, our voyage
journey.
Such,
Yeah, because well, later on then there's a great benefit from rowing, from being on the sea, from finding that connection with nature, and that sort of connection to our ancestral feelings, you know, that's very hard to replicate in the modern day, to kind of get those pheromones that our ancestors used to get from hunting and fishing, and feeling the reward of a meal, and these kind of basic
we're getting a connection to the origins of our own time, and the hunter-gatherer experience, and getting back to basics there is in it as well.
Yeah, and then I'm also very fascinated in you know, cave art and early human art, and then how that would have related within their society, and storytelling and story making, and mythology and all things like that. But visually, like what you were saying about the symmetry, and if there's a relation at all between the symmetry, or if there is a symmetry in the painting. Like in the painting, for me, it's like a musical score, or a mathematical kind of formula where, yeah, each sort of color and mark, it has its purpose in drawing your eye around the canvas, and in working your eye, you know. So it kind of puts the spectator, if they're willing to like jump into it, to kind of bring them on a journey around this flat area, almost like a map, and then within forms and colors, our minds kind of translate that one way or another. And my ambition with it is that people will sort of make their own stories and relate to their own memories through these marks and symbols, you know, that I use in the paintings. Mm-hmm. So I guess that, like, the similarity between boat building and painting, for me, if there is any, it would be kind of the finding that balance. Like, a boat has to be very finely balanced to perform well on the water, and I think a painting as well has to be very well considered and meditated over and watched for a long time until that balance can be achieved. Or I find with my work, it's fairly heavily layered.
That's very good. So your journey then, or you've been to many parts of the world. Has there been any highlight that stands out above the rest in your voyages?
Well, I suppose the birth of my daughter is probably about the highlight so far of anything that I've had part in creation. Okay. But I've been, lucky enough artistically to be able to work in Tasmania, where when I'd finished college, I went there on the travel work visa, and I ended up working there in an abalone factory. Abalone is a kind of a shellfish, and I was lucky to meet an artist and do a residency with him in his studio. He lived in completely in the wilderness, completely off grid.
Oh, that sounds very good.
Yeah, so we made a currach together out of material in the forest, and he gave me a studio where I could paint, and I was there about 6 months in all, living with this artist called Drew Murphy, wonderful artist, wonderful guy, and just kind of making minimal impact really on the earth in a way. And it was very formative kind of time, I suppose. I was in early 20s. So I learned a lot there from Drew about, I suppose, kind of finding the pace of life as an artist, and how to kind of do it, and how to sort of lean into it and just relax into it. And so I suppose those first steps into the journey of being a self-supporting artist, time of, I suppose, great conviction and sort of dream making time.
Yeah. So the finding of self as such.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perhaps. Yeah.
Very good. And your background in boat building, we'll keep that in mind. And do you have a preference to creating sculptural forms, and do paintings require the same amount of energy as you would doing sculptural or even boat making?
Yeah, it's an interesting question again, because you have an understanding of the concept of the energy that's contained within a painting, and what is a different kind of energy that might be in a sculpture. I think a sculpture for me is something more like a totem, or something that's like a spirit cage or something there. Yeah, there's some kind of more stillness in it. Well, no, I wouldn't say stillness. There's something more definite and contained in a sculpture, and then in the painting, I think it just has much more possibilities of translation.
And you've exhibited both sculpture and paintings at the same time, and do you find that is more visually impressive to people, or would you prefer walking into a gallery and just seeing paintings alone without the reference of the sculpture behind that?
Yeah, and I like to install it all together and to work with the different materials, the relation that paper can have against wood, and the way canvas might work with wood or paper again, like using these different materials to create an energy in a room.
It just strikes me, is canvas used in boat building in your currach?
Yeah, I would have used canvas in the...
I'm not very knowledgeable about it. It just struck me there when you were saying the sculptural forms and then canvas, and then I was thinking which canvas would be used in some boat building, I'd imagine. So
yeah, it's true. In the currachs, I would have used canvas. In Ireland, when I was making currachs, I would have used canvas. When I came to Barcelona, I started using a ballistic nylon, and I paint on that sometimes as well. But you're right that their material content is exactly the same.
That's interesting, because I'm finding some sort of symmetry in our own work, actually more than what you would think. That I was using ripstop nylon to make kites, and I was experimenting with it as a base for painting as well. And I found that once you put gesso on it, it completely changed how do you say, materiality, and it became a wonderful painting surface. So I'm sure you probably found the same with a different kind of nylon.
Yeah, absolutely. And just experimenting with different materials, and the surprises you get from working with unknown elements is exciting, and I like to experiment with different material.
Yeah, very good. And I also I was watching a YouTube video there a little while ago, and you were saying that you felt that artists have a responsibility to do something, to bring something to others, and to enlighten the world, and that your art should have perhaps a positive outcome and a betterment for people or the environment, and that you were working on a project to find how much plastic was present in fish, and you were setting up a quantifiable study, which is very interesting. Do you want to let us know a little bit about that? Because it's very interesting that you, as an artist, that you're looking for ways to let your practice have a positive impact.
Yeah, well, in my early days in college, when I was in the Dún Laoghaire College of Art and Design, I was my tutor there, one of my tutors, Terry Rudin, great tutor and very insightful person, and she introduced me to the work of Joseph Beuys. I've been fascinated by him ever since, and I think his duty, like his self-imposed duty to improve his community and his surroundings and the environment and every part of the planet, and his commitment to that through art really inspired me. And I think there is a power in art to be able to help transform society and the planet for the better. And it's up to the artist to accept or invent a responsibility, but
that's very good.
I do think it's possible, and I've taken that on board in my work. So with this project, because I would be out on the sea regularly rowing the curraghs and teaching people to row, and I've met some scientists, and I've been lucky enough to be able to help them out with their work, collecting microplastics using trawling a net behind the curragh, and collecting microplastics from the seawater and quantifying that. And then just before the pandemic set in, I was there was a big storm and a huge amount of plastic was washed in onto the beach where I'd launched the curragh off. Like an alarming amount of plastic that completely covered the sand entirely, like blanketed it. So yeah, I began wondering if the fish were eating plastic and digesting it, and I just checked online. There was very few studies, but there are studies, and there are methods of really defining how much plastic is in fish guts. But anyway, I started collecting fish guts, like the fish that I catch. I'd keep their intestines, to put them in the freezer, and eventually found a scientist to help me out with a study, and we did find plastic in every fish gut that we tested. So it would be nice to formalize that and to kind of do it with a university and have it like a certified study that would be very shocking and revealing, I think. And I suppose the ultimate goal of that would be to try and find a large company to help with somehow extracting plastic from the ocean, because I believe that in order to reverse this industrial scale problem, we need to come at it with an industrial scale solution, and we need to start, for our children's sake, like we need to start thinking about taking this out and reversing the damage that's been done, and within really our parents. Well, I'm 42 now, so within my parents' generation, I think the modern day pollution really started kicking in, and there is a better way about it,
Yeah, we've seen it. My own project I mentioned about the kites. I did a cleanup in the area where I was flying them, and Yes, it was alarming the amount of plastic that we collected and got rid of. But where it's going, it's a bit of a mystery, because the councils collect it, and we're told that it's going to an incinerator. But one of the council workers who was collecting it was talking to me, and I was asking him, so this is going to the incinerator then, in my understanding? And he said, no, it's going to landfill. So I found that a bit off-putting and shocking in a way, that they're putting a lot of energy into cleaning up the place, but it's just going back into landfill. And even if you consider incineration, you're still going to get some sort of the plastic never goes away. That's I guess that's the message I'm trying to get through. And that looking for alternatives would be a good solution. And perhaps you see plastics or what did I say? Substitutes for plastics can come out of algae. So there is light, and there is alternatives. And and seeing a lot now paper straws being used instead of plastic straws in some of the fast food outlets. So awareness, creating awareness does make quite an impact, I think.
Yeah.
And studies like what you're doing are very important. So
Plastic is massive. It's huge. So there needs to be a huge amount of pressure for them to transfer into a more holistic way of making. And it's such a big industry that's where the fight is at. Like, it's do best to clean our plastic and put it in the right recycling compartment. There's no real way of deal with clean plastics, as far as I'm concerned. So the technology isn't there to process it at the moment, but alternatives are certainly there.
Yeah.
We can use them, and we can sort of demand them nearly as consumers, and with and as public,
That's very good. So on a very positive note, we're leaving that we can find alternatives, and that we know that our work can make a difference. So thanks very much, Mark, for your interview. It's very insightful and very inspiring.
Thanks for having me, Alan, and good luck with your podcast.
Well, thank you very much.
And I hope we get to talk again soon.